Okay, it is 2:30, so we will go ahead and get started. We are doing a Wireshark study group to help introduce folks to Wireshark. And if you're interested, you can go on and take the Wireshark network analysis certification. I have Professor Roger in here with me to help, kick things off. So I'm excited that he decided to jump in with us. So we'll be talking about the Wireshark for 12 weeks, basically. So we are using the second edition of the Wireshark Network Analysis certification textbook, which is pretty thick. So there are 33 chapters in the text. So our schedule is a little bit aggressive. We'll be covering approximately three chapters a week, so that we can get through this in 12 weeks. But even if you're not studying for the certification, I think that this will help you to get used to Wireshark, because it's a great tool for ethical hacking. So I think it'll definitely help your future hacking careers if you get a good idea about how to find information with it. So any comments or questions so far?
Thanks for getting this started, Tanisha. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Also, I want to point out that there is if you are in our Slack channel, there is an electronic version of the book. I actually bought mine from Amazon, and it was, I think, maybe like $99. And it is the size of some of the textbooks that you probably may have seen in college. So it's pretty chunky, but we're just going to cover the highlights in the study group so that you can know how to use Wireshark to be able to find information and use it effectively.
How can we join your Slack channel?
There is if someone could post the link to Slack. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And where's the book at?
So the book is in there's a Wireshark channel once you get into Slack, and the book is in there. But I found it using a little Google Foo, so it's available online if you just do a specific search for the book with file type PDF. You can find it also. And I see.
Is that right down the chat?
Yes, the chat's open. So I see that you just posted the Slack invites. Thank you. All right, so chapter 1, exam executive. So the way that we'll have this laid out is, sorry, someone talking?
Bianca is off mic.
Okay. All right, so if the way we're going to have this set up is that we will cover what the exam objectives are for each one of the chapters that we're doing. So right now we're doing chapters 1 through 3. So these are the exam objectives for chapter 1. The purpose of Wireshark, if you're not familiar with it, is for network analysis. So you'll see that network analysis is the process of listening to and analyzing network traffic, okay? So the reason why this is important is because that, especially if you're a blue teamer, you're going to use Wireshark to be able to determine whether or not you're having network issues. A lot of the reasons why I use it are just to be able to find information. Like, for example, if you're doing a capture the flag, or if you have to review some traffic, that's the context that I've interfaced with them. But in real life, people use Wireshark to be able to analyze networks and determine, where the issues are, what devices might be, having a lot of issues. So it allows you to troubleshoot tasks as a network analyst. We'll also be talking about some of the security tasks and optimization as a network analyst, as well as the legal issues of listening to network traffic. So if you take a look, I'll show you on the Black Girls Hack website where I have staged all of the PCAP files that we're going to be using. I would not suggest that you listen to a network, for example, if you're in a hotel or if you're on a public network on a network that you do not own. I do not suggest that you start listening to traffic, because there are legal issues associated with just accessing the traffic and being able to look at it. The other thing that you'll see once you get started with Wireshark is that, if you listen to traffic for, let's say a couple of hours, you can easily end up with hundreds of thousands, or if not more, of hundreds of thousands, if not more, of what's it called, of packets. So review a checklist of an analysis tools and understanding network traffic flows are some of the other topics that we're covering in week 1. So any questions about that? All right, so in this particular, go ahead, Professor.
I just wanted to make a comment about from the cybersecurity side. Well, from Wireshark in general, from a networking side, is a tool they use every day. Right? It's like an everyday utility tool. Now, from a cybersecurity side, and this is why it's good to know this tool, because when you're in the meetings with network admins and you're using the tools they use, then your conversations are better, right? The collaboration is better. So it's good to understand Wireshark in that sense. Now, from a cybersecurity side, we use Wireshark for incident response to try to determine what we call IOC. IOC is indicator of compromise, right? So how did they get in? Where was it compromised? And then we move from there. Also is using forensics, obviously, after the fact to see what's going on. So in incident response, we could see what's happening now and see if we could, stop it. And then forensics to find out why did it happen later on. So that's what we use Wireshark for in the cybersecurity space.
Yeah, I would just add that, a professor would definitely of anyone would know, because, he is serving in like the blue team and like the purple team in his job. So, this is the real world application. So this is just not a tool that we're doing, for like capture the flags and, for playing. This is an actual real life tool that you can put onto your resume and be able to, represent once you get a good understanding. So I just wanted to show everyone where the files were. So if you go to blackgirlshack.org/Wireshark, you'll see in here that there is a link to a Google Drive, and you will also see that there is a link to the slides that I have provided for this week. And I will try to get these up prior to the course. So in this case, we have the chapter 1 files, but there is that I'll provide a link to later, all of the files. So there are, I want to say maybe, maybe 50 or so different files that are going to be used throughout the course of this. So, that's where the files are going to be when we talk about the files that are specifically being used in a particular chapter. So this is where the files are for chapter 1, and this is where the slides are. So in case you want to follow along on your own computer. So I put these up here for you. You can actually go and get these if you have the book. It tells you where to go and get them. But I just put them up here on a Google Drive for you so that you'd have some easier access. So the file that we're going to be taking a look at in this exercise is going to be the HTTP Wireshark slow PCAP. So if you want to get that up and loaded, then that'll get you ready for when we get ready to take a look at this.
Everybody has Wireshark installed already?
I think so. I put a note in there that they needed Wireshark in order to be able
installed
to.
Okay.
Yeah, or they can. Wireshark is already available on your Kali machine, or you'd have to download it onto your host machine. So I have it on my host machine.
Okay, so you coming from a Windows perspective?
Yes.
Because I think
I don't know anything
Linux,
about,
the Linux perspective is a little different, right?
well, so to run Wireshark, I think it's the same. So like this is me launching it in my,
Mhm.
on my host machine, but you
Right.
can also, pull it up in your Kali machine if you've got a Kali VM, in the same way. So it really just depends. So in general, I would suggest that you, run it on the Kali machine if you have an option. And the
Oh,
reason being is that you can get, so hopefully all of these files are safe, but it's possible to get malicious, things that somebody might have accessed in a PCAP file. You can download that to your own machine. So if it was malicious, it would be malicious on your machine as well. So it is possible that you can, get some unexpected consequences from using um, the information in Wireshark.
all right. So,
So the other thing is you have to run Wireshark as root. So if you're doing this from Kali, you can just execute it here and be able to take a look at the files also. But you just need to put in your password because it has to be run as root.
right.
So
And
any
just
questions
remember,
so far?
no, I was saying, just remember that you're coming from a Windows perspective, so it might be a little different, the GUI. So if you get confused as, or you don't see where Tanisha's clicking at, just ask, just ask her where she's at.
Yes. All right. So network analysis. When we're talking about network analysis, this is the process of listening to and analyzing network traffic. It's sometimes called protocol analysis, but it's the process of monitoring network performance and security. So in order to be good at network analysis, you kind of to have three basic skills. So those skills are a solid understanding of TCP and ICP communications, comfort using the Wireshark tool, and a familiarity with packet structures and packet flows so that you can kind of, figure out what it is that you're looking for. For example, when we talk about things such as like a three-way handshake, right? Knowing how to identify three-way handshake within a set of packets, will help you to figure out whether or not a connection was made, to be able to figure out, retrace some of the steps, especially if you're trying to figure out whether or not, for example, your network was breached, if you're looking at it to see, what happened. So the process for analysis includes capturing packets at the appropriate location. So we'll see that there are both good and bad locations to be able to capture traffic, depending on what your goal is. The process also includes applying filters to focus on traffic of interest. Sometimes you can get hundreds of thousands of packets, so you want to try to make sure that you are taking a look at the traffic, the packets in the most efficient way. And then also reviewing and identifying anomalies in the traffic. So if you can figure out like, hey, there's a lot of, for example, bad packets here, there's a lot of dropped packets here, you may be able to determine that there's something going on, for example, with a network device. All right, so TCP connection steps. So if your system supports IP4 and IP version 6, when you go to a website, so say for example, wireshark.org, you say I want to go to www.wireshark.org, what you're going to see in there is that you'll see one DNS request for IP version 4, which is going to be an A record. And then you're going to see another one for IP version 6, which is a quad A record. So I'm going to pull up the Wireshark packet that we're taking a look at now so that you can be able to see what this actually looks like. And we are looking at the HTTP Wireshark slow.
And if people using the Kali Linux, do you know how to load a file in Kali Linux?
Wireshark download slow. Is that the one I'm looking for? Wireshark slow, dash slow. This may be the file. We'll find out in a minute. All right, so if you're in a, if you actually have Wireshark up and running, you can just say file and open and go find the file that you're using. If you are in Kali, you can do the same thing. You can say file, open. The other thing that you can do is to actually just double click on the file. So if you have, for example, your PCAP file saved to your desktop, you can double click on them, and then Wireshark is the default application for those files. So can everybody just let me know where you're at in this process? You just like raise your hand if you have managed to load this file and you're taking a look at it now.
Is that file part of the Wireshark package, or do we have to download it, go Google it?
It's on the Black Girls site. I put the link in the chat. blackgirlshack.org Wireshark. You scroll up a little. And which one you're doing? Yeah, Wireshark download.
Yeah, I signed up for the Black Girls site, but apparently it takes a bit before you get okay to be registered for it.
Oh, if this is a secure section, Tanisha? Or anybody could go to this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you was on mute?
I was muted. If you go to blackgirlshack.org/Wireshark, you can just access it. There's no password to get in here. You don't have to be registered or logged in or anything.
Did you click on the link that's in the chat?
Yeah. Let me try that again. Okay, now I see it. Sorry.
All right, cool. Also, too, guys, Tanisha has a Slack channel, and I'm going to be putting links and stuff in there as we go along, so that way we have it beyond just this chat section. Is that okay with you, Tanisha?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, so once you have the Wireshark file open, as we discussed in here, depending on when you're doing the TCP connection, the first thing you do after you do type in your web browser, www.wireshark.org, you'll see that it kicks off two DNS requests. The first one you'll see is at packet 2, and it is an A record. So you'll see the A here. So the second one you'll see is the quad A record, which is for IP version 4. Okay, so when we're talking about things like DNS and how there's different types of records, you'll see those records when you're taking a look at the traffic, and those DNS records are actually displayed under the protocol DNS, right? So that's why they say, hey, it's a good idea if you understand, for example, the different protocols, because that helps you to be able to identify what it is that you're looking for. And then also, as you start to understand like what happens when you enter a command into a web browser, then you'll be able to look for each one of those different pieces of that, right? So I was talking about earlier about a three-way handshake. So you'll see part of that start to happen. We have a SYN, ACK, and then an ACK. So this shows a completed three-way handshake for this connection, right? So you'll be able to start to be able to tell a story based on what happened, based on the traffic that's in the Wireshark packet file. So if you've never seen this before, if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that there are 23,000 packets that are in this particular file. There can be, hundreds of thousands of packets. There could be only a couple of packets, depending on how long you try to capture traffic for. But if you just were to, for example, start and then try to just, start capturing traffic your own, on your own network, you want to make sure that you're the owner of that network, because again, that can get anything that's connected to your wireless network, which you may not be the owner of, which could have legal implications. So you want to make sure that you are not getting yourself in legal trouble. So you can actually find all the things that you need to find for the purposes of the study group in the sample files that are provided for you. Okay. So you'll see after the DNS, you have the IP4 version 4 DNS request that we saw. It's at like packet 2, and then you see the other one that's at packet 5, which has the 4A records. And then after that happens, the system requests the IP address of the Wireshark. So that happens at packet 10, and then the system responds, and that's at packet 14. So if we look at right here, we'll see that there's an HTTP request where the system requests this to go and get the IP address of the website. And then at 14, the system responds back with an OK. So as you can see, as we take a look and you have try to understand what's going on in the package, you'll see this is the beginning of a conversation. So when we're talking about, you may have heard within, like, for example, the Security Plus, oh, there's a 3-way handshake, there's a DNS, it has to figure out whether or not it's a address that's known to them. If not, then it has to go and find out who has that information. You'll start to see that story being told in the packet capture file as you go along. Okay, so that you can be able, as a network security professional, be able to say, hey, this is what happened. Somebody accessed this file. Someone did this. You'll be able to piece together those actions. Okay, so Wireshark is a very, very powerful tool to be able to do those things. While we're in here, I just want to show you a couple of things. If you are looking for information that's related to a specific protocol, you can sort the protocol so that it shows you only the things that are related to DNS. So we can see all of the things that happened here. And then you can also see, for example, in HTTP and then TCP. So you'll see all of these things. The other thing that I think that's very important for you guys to be aware of is, if you want to have an idea of what was going on, one of the ways that I do this is to say, right click and say follow TCP stream. You can do the same for HTTP traffic or UDP traffic. And what it does is it'll show you an overview of what happened in the file, right? So you're able to get certain information from here. So we can see that there was a GET request up here. We can see, if there's a user agent and what language it is in. But then you'll see that some of the information is actually encrypted, right? So you'll see the difference between, for example, when information is encrypted and when it's not, because you'll be able to see information in clear text, such as username and passwords, if this was something like TCP, which is sent in the clear, versus, you'll just see a whole bunch of things that don't make a whole bunch of sense, where you can piece together maybe a little bit here or there, but much of the information is not available. Right. So any questions on that so far?
Yeah, and if people have questions and it's too noisy where you at, feel free to put the questions in the chat, and I'm monitoring it. Tanisha's monitoring it. We could I'll just read it out to Tanisha. Also, I wanted to point out while Tanisha's there. Oh, you closed the window. Yeah, if you open that back just for a second. So here's a couple of things from a cybersecurity, and I want to think of this, or to get yourself into a cybersecurity mindset, right? Like, one thing, Wireshark is capturing the network. So don't kill the messenger. This is not Wireshark's fault. Network by design is not secure. And I mean the network protocol. TCP IP version 4 by design, guys, it's not an error, by design, it has no security at all. None. There's none baked into the protocol. Right? When they made the protocol, it was no need for it. Right? And thank God there's no security in it, because we wouldn't have got this far. There wouldn't have been no cell phones or smartphones. There wouldn't have been no IoT devices, because the network would have moved too slow. Right? So technology moved faster than the network did. So thank God there's no security. But here's the problem, is that there are some things that have to be in clear text. No, Tanisha said this is, well, she's showing you a HTTP protocol, and that HTTP protocol is in clear text. But even if it was HTTPS, there's some information like the header information and stuff like that have to be in clear text, because that's how both devices negotiate with each other. So before there's a communication in networking, there's a negotiation. I negotiate the speed, the protocol you're using. You know, what's your window size? Meaning, how much data can I give you at one, or how many packets can I give you at one time? Right? Those things are negotiated, and then you tell me, like we see here in the red, it says user agent, what browser she's using. She's using Windows. She's using Windows browser, NT 6.0, which is Windows 10. So, you know, it gives you information that a hacker will use for recon. I don't know if hackers use Wireshark, but they have their own packet capture tools. They probably do use Wireshark. Hey, why reinvent the wheel? But, you know, this is called passive recon, right? That we could run Wireshark in the background, doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't affect anybody, doesn't communicate with any device, and we could see what's going on, right? So, you know, that's something to think about when we're working in Wireshark.
Professor, I was just going to ask, for a hacker to use Wireshark on your system, they would have already had to have hacked into your system, correct?
Yeah, but they don't need it on your system. They just need to run it on the network. This is a networking tool, not a device tool.
Okay.
Right.
So
I was just going to add to that they don't need to hack you at all. If you have someone who comes over to your house and uses your Wi-Fi, right? They're connected to the same network that you're on. So, you know, just by giving someone your address, like even if you just give me your Wi-Fi password for me to be able to connect my phone, I can use something like Fing to be able to see all of the devices that are on your network. Depending on, you know, what you have connected to that network. If I connect a Wireshark to it and start capturing traffic, anything that's happening, you know, it could be your kid that's in another room, you know, your husband that's in another room, you know, any of the things that they're doing on the internet, that traffic can get captured just by me being connected to the same thing. So it's not even like I broke into your device and I got your web, you know, your username and password, and, you know, I can start accessing your bank account. Any transactions that you're doing on the web, and if you think about it, like we do everything on the web, even video games we play on the web. All of that information can be captured through Wireshark, which is why we're going to talk about, like, hey, make sure you own the network before you start capturing traffic.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
All right, so so that is one way, is to be able to follow the traffic. So you can follow the traffic for TCP, you can follow the traffic for UDP. You'll see more interesting things, I think, once we start to take a look at some of the other types of traffic, especially ones that are sent completely in the clear text. You'll also see up here currently, this is taking a look at all of the things that are related to this this particular stream. So I said follow that stream. So it gives me all of the things that were involved in that conversation, right? So you'll see that this is just a subset of 91 of the 23,000 packets that were specifically involved in this conversation. So if we get rid of this, this goes back and it'll take us back to, you know, the larger one, which has all 23,000 packets. So the other thing that you can be able to find out just as a source of quick information, is if you go to statistics and then you say endpoints, you'll be able to see the IP version 4 addresses that were involved in this packet capture. So it'll let you know, for example, most of the communications that are going on are between, for example, certain addresses, or these are the endpoints that are involved at some point in the conversation. So this is the IP version 4. There are no IP version 6. But then something else that's interesting in that same menu is the conversations. So what the conversations tells you is specifically that this one computer, 24.6.173.220, was communicating to, these, what is this, maybe 8 IP addresses. So it tells you, for example, what the conversation was. It tells you, for example, that this one exchanged 22,000 packets. There was this, 23 million bytes. These are the packets that were sent from address A to address B. These are the ones that were sent back from B to A. So you can get a lot of high level information from the packet capture file just by taking a look in a couple of different places. So any questions about that? Professor, you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing. When we do this in incident response, and when we're talking to a client, we will show this and say, okay, 24.6.173.220 is the hacker. This is, we identified the hacker. Now, what are these machines? All right, and then they would tell us, oh, this is the database server, this is the mail server, this is the CEO's laptop. They would break it down and tell us there. So this is a great place for you to know what your capture file actually captured. Think of it as eavesdropping on the conversations, right? Or recording conversations at a party. Like who's talking to who's in that tape that you eavesdropped on.
And I think that what I would also add to that is that, as you're listening into the conversation, if there are files, so let's say if someone clicks on something, right, this goes to get an image that someone clicked on, right? So it has to actually go and get that image in order for you to be able to look at it. So you'll see, for example, if you were to export the objects in the HTTP objects, you'll see any of the files that the person clicked on, any of the pictures that they clicked on, anything that they may have downloaded, basically all of the actions that you perform when you're on the web, there is a kind of a footprint to that, right? So the reason why I said that it's probably best if you perform your packet capturing on a Kali machine, which is kind of like isolated from your main network, is that if any of these files were, malicious, I can download all of this information to my computer and take a look at it. So I can actually be able to see, hey, this is the file that they looked at, right? So why does this matter? If you think about it from a like a kind of a criminal perspective, right? Let's say like, hey, I never saw the list of passwords that was displayed, so I couldn't have possibly broken in, right? And they have the yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That professor's asking that question, you guys. So you can see, hey, somebody actually clicked on this. They viewed this. This was a picture of a shark. This was a picture of whatever. So you'll be able to see exactly what it is that someone was looking at. If they downloaded any files, like so, if there was like a what is it called, like a XLS, like an Excel file or a PowerPoint or whatever it is that they did, and that was captured in the traffic, you'd be able to download that information. So if somebody, for example, uploaded a reverse shell, you'd be able to see that in the list of things that are in here. So you can do that for, I did it for HTTP, but for, if you transfer files, for example, over FTP, or if you do them through an SMB server, all of that information would be available here, right? So in this case, there's no FTP traffic. So, but if you were to, for example, transfer a file from a network to an outside server, that's one of the ways, like Professor was talking about, an indicator of compromise. Oh, well, I see that this password list was removed from our server and it was put, sent out via FTP. which is why, people say don't have FTP up and running. So we see all of the TCP connection steps in there, and I showed you also the OK and the three-way handshake. So the next thing we're taking a look at is the wget. So if we look at packet 10, we'll see that there was a get. Okay, so when you go to you go to a website and you say, hey, I want to pull up this website, what it's going to do is it's going to go and get that that page for you. Okay, so if we look at, I think it's packet 10, and I need to put these back in numerical order. So I just click back on the numbers, and we look at packet 10, you can see that there was a wget that was sent here. It sent the information. You'll see that it accepted it, what language. You'll be able to get a lot of information from a packet capture. So this might be like might not be the most efficient way to be able to get recon information from a website, but this is passive, so they're not going to know that you're doing this, if that makes sense. You're not actually, sending packets to the file. You're just listening, eavesdropping into a conversation. This is like the equivalent of, if you're sitting next to somebody at Starbucks and you're listening to their conversation. But in this case, if you're connected to the Wi-Fi, you can listen to both sides of the conversation. So any questions about any of that? So you'll see here that it said, hey, they wanted us to go get the website wireshark.org, and it'll tell you that the next request in the frame is 16. So if you wanted to follow this specific conversation, you could do that one of two ways. You could just right click and say follow, right? Or you can just say, hey, let me just go to the next frame in the thing. So it'll pop you to 16, which is the next thing in that conversation. Okay, so in the next page in that conversation is it getting a file from off of the server as well. Okay, so all of that stuff, all of the things that are in that conversation, you'll be able to see. So again, you can be able to tell a story of what happened.
And all this is in clear text, so which is concerning, right?
Yeah, so like Professor said, in order to be able to send packets, if you have, for example, a firewall, the firewall has to be able to read the header information to tell where it's going. The router has to be able to read the header information to tell where it's going, right? So all of that information can't be encrypted. So all that information is sent in the clear. So, you can tell a lot of information just based on that without even having to do any actual hacking. Like I said, this is not the most efficient way to be able to find out information, but if a hacker is able to, get access to your network, they can find out a lot of things, especially if you use tools that are sent in clear text as opposed to things that are encrypted. And I tell people all the time, like, even if the information is sent and encrypted, that's not like foolproof. You know what I'm saying? Like, with enough time and motivation, somebody might be able to decrypt what it is, especially if they know what the encryption is. So troubleshooting using Wireshark. So troubleshooting is the most common real-world use of Wireshark, and it's typically used to locate the source of unacceptable performance of the network, an application, a host, or other element of the network communications. Common tasks used for troubleshooting with Wireshark including locating faulty network devices, identifying devices or software misconfigurations, measuring high delays along a path, locating the point of packet loss, identifying network errors and service refusals, and graphing queuing delays. Okay, so it's not just for finding information and for telling the story, but it can also be used to try to figure out, hey, it's taken me a really long time to download this file from wireshark.org. Why is that? Oh, well, I see that a lot of packets are being dropped at this particular, network device. So why is that going on? What's going on with that particular network device that's causing it to drop a lot of packets, which causes them to have to be resent, for example. So it can help you to find out what's going on in your network. There are also security tasks involved with using Wireshark. So security tasks can be proactive or reactive. So what that means is that you can try to find out why there's a problem going on. So that's reactive. And proactive is, hey, I just want to make sure that everything's, the network is up and running. So like our DBAs at where I work, they do a check every morning to make sure that the network is up and running. So this could be a tool that they could use to try to, make sure that there are no issues. So some of the security tasks that they might do include performing intrusion detection, identifying and defining malicious traffic signatures, passively discovering hosts, operating systems and services. Again, this is the type of stuff that we're doing in like one of the first phases of ethical hacking. So if you can discover host, operating system and services without actually ever running an Nmap scan, and this is done passively. So this is like this is why this is a tool that can be used for malicious purposes as well as good purposes. Logging traffic for forensic examination. Hey, I think Bob stole some money and looked at this file. Can we prove it? Capture traffic as evidence, testing the firewall blocking to make sure, for example, if your web server is not supposed to be allowing FTP traffic through, checking to see whether or not it actually allows it, and then validating secure login and data traversal. So any questions about the security tasks? All right, so legal issues. If you've ever heard terms such as wiretapping or electronic surveillance, this is the type of things they're talking about. There are other ways to do electronic surveillance, but Wireshark provides you the ability to eavesdrop on a network communications. So if you're doing connecting traffic or analyzing traffic live on a network, then you should either own it, have written permission to be doing that. Verbal permission is not enough. Written permission keeps you out of jail, and or work for the company that owns the network. Okay, so if you are for example, a SOC analyst and it's your job to protect the company and to analyze security operations, then you have the permission to be able to analyze the network. But if you do not fall in one of those categories, I would stick to already canned PCAP files that people have collected, because that will keep you out of jail. So Title I of the Electronic Communications and Privacy Act, which is the Wiretap Act, prohibits the actual or attempted, interception, use, disclosure, procurement of any files of any other person to intercept or endeavor to intercept any wire, oral, or electronic communication. So if you have Wireshark going on someone else's network, then you could be guilty of Title I issues. Okay, so i.e., this is not the party trick that you want to show your friends to demonstrate your hacking ability. You want to make sure that you're only doing this on networks that you own, or if you just opening files that someone else has captured, that gives you the experience to be able to look at different types of traffic without giving you the issues. But if you own the network, then you should be fine.
Yeah, and so this is tricky, right? Because in an internal network, like here at Microsoft, if you caught with Wireshark, obviously that's going to be you're going to have problems, especially if it's found that you are running it. Sometimes a hacker could it could be part of their malware package, right? But let's say we're in Starbucks. Remember, Wireshark is a network diagnostic troubleshooting tool. So if I'm running Wireshark on Starbucks, and Starbucks did not say, or Starbucks is claiming to be a legal, so remember what network you're hooking up to. Starbucks is a hotspot. So a hotspot, you sign all your legal rights away, all your privacy, everything away. So if I run Wireshark in a hotspot situation, then that's not, well, that in itself is not illegal, right? So then cybersecurity professionals, we have to know this, because your executives or your manager or even your staff, your sales staff, they waive all their rights to privacy. That means they waived all their rights to privacy for the company too. So, we have to understand that people are going to be running packet sniffing tools to find out where they're going, what people are doing. They're looking for, I call them sucker scans. So there's people that stay in Starbucks parking lot and do sucker scans, see if they can find a sucker. They might be looking for personal identity theft, or they might be downstairs from a Wall Street, right? Imagine the Starbucks on Wall Street, right? Or a corporate complex where all employees go in just to chill and work because it's too noisy upstairs, right? So that's a issue too.
Absolutely. All right, so next up. Oh,
So question.
sure.
So with the illegal projects, an example, so what happens if you're actually doing the project but don't have permission in order to actually do that? It's a compromise. Like if you're in open Wi-Fi, let's say the Wi-Fi in public, sitting at like a park or at Starbucks, and you happen to try to work on the packaging inside there without permission. How would they verify who is it coming from?
How would they verify the information is coming from, or how would they verify that someone was sniffing it?
Yes. So for example, like if they use it, let's say you sit in a Starbucks and you don't realize that there's somebody in there who's doing a packet and tracing inside there.
Right,
And there's happened to be that your device is picked up as one of the users in Starbucks. That shows
right.
where the person can find your information.
Oh, how can you know that? You can't. This is an active, see, this is a passive scan. So this is called passive recon. Like, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just watching packets go by. So imagine you're talking to somebody and you're talking about some top secret stuff, and I'm sitting at the table right next to you. This is the same scenario. So now you can't arrest me for saying that I didn't, I was eavesdropping. No, you was talking in a public space and I was sitting next to you. So anything you say in a public space is fair game. The same thing with networking. Right? So no one knows this is happening. There's no way to know this is happening because the packets are outside of your device. I'm sniffing the traffic outside of your device. So your device is not being compromised in any way.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes. All right, thank you. That makes sense.
You're welcome. All right, so network traffic flows. So switches, you may heard of a lot of these types of devices, as you were studying for your Security Plus, or if you've just had any exposure to, networking. Switches forward information based on the destination MAC address. So switches do not change the MAC address or the IP addresses that are in the packet. Okay, so you'll see that there are some devices that actually will change the IP addresses. It gets to different parts of the network, but switches do not. So when a packet arrives at a switch, the switch checks the packet to ensure it has the correct checksum. If it's good, and then it moves on to the next part. And if it's incorrect, it's deemed bad and the packet is discarded. So if the packet is discarded, then the packet has to be sent again. So switches typically maintain error counters to indicate how many packets they've discarded because of bad checksums. So if you have, for example, a switch which has a very high count of bad checksums, that might be that something's going on with that particular switch. So this is one of the ways that you can kind of identify, for example, if a switch is bad because it has a high number of bad checksums. So if the checksum is good, the switch examines the destination MAC and it checks its MAC address table. to determine if it knows where the switch port leads to the host that is using that MAC address, right? So if it's already in its MAC address table, then it can just forward it to that destination. If it doesn't have the target, it'll send us a message out to all the switch ports in hopes of having one of them respond back to say whether or not they know where the target is, okay? So if the switch does have the target, then it's just going to forward it to that particular switch port. So any questions about that?
Right, and this is I won't say it's a problem, right? Because a problem means that something is broke, right? This is not broke. This is by design. So the switch's job is to get the packet to its destination. It's counting on the fact that, just like we're counting on the fact here in this Zoom meeting, that we're all here for one common purpose, right? So anything I post in here or any link I give you, I'm just assuming that we're all for that purpose, right? We're all here in good faith. Same thing with the switch. The switch says everybody connected to me is here in good faith. So if I give you a packet that's not yours, you would discard it. If it's not for you, you would discard it. So I don't know where destination B is. I don't know where it's at, but I'm not even sure if it's connected to me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody that's connected to me. I'm going to send the packet to everybody that's connected to me. It's called flooding. I'm going to flood every port, and then whoever it's for will accept it. Whoever it's not for will reject it, right? That's what I'm hoping for. Now, if I'm a hacker and I'm plugged into your switch, I could see every packet coming through that switch if it's doing that kind of approach, right? So that's called, in networking, that's called promiscuous mode, right? Where everything, all traffic can be seen through all ports, because the switch floods every port, every packet. Right. So.
All right. So routers, okay? Routers are not a network device. They operate a little bit differently. So routers forward packets based on the destination IP address that's in the IP header. So again, as Professor pointed out earlier, the IP address header is in the clear, so you don't have to worry about whether it's encrypted or not. So when a packet is sent to the MAC address to the router examines the checksum to see if the packet is valid. If the packet is valid, the router strips the MAC header and examines the IP header to examine the time to live and the destination of the packet. So you'll see that this is not the same as the switch, because the switch basically leaves it alone, and the router is actually stripping the header to take a look and see where it's going. So if the packet is not valid, the packet is dropped. If the packet has exceeded its time to live value, the router discards the packets and sends an ICMP message, time to live exceeded message back to the sender. If the packet is not too old, meaning it doesn't have a time to live value that's been exceeded, the router consults the routing tables to see if it knows where the destination network is. If the router is connected to that, it will send the packet to there. If it is not known, the router will decrement the time to live value, will apply a new MAC header, and then forward it to the next hop on the router. So routers can contain rules that block or permit packets that are based on the addressing information. So any questions or comments about that? No? All right, so just be aware that switches are not going to change the headers, routers are. All right, so next we have proxies, firewalls, and NAT and PATs. So firewalls are created to examine traffic and to disallow communication based on a set of rules, okay? So, you may have seen, if you did the Security Plus study group, that we had some rules that had like some performance-based questions that had access control lists where you might, update information in a firewall, update the rules about what type of traffic is allowed or not allowed. So that information is going to be determined based on the firewall. So basic firewalls operate at level 3 of the OSI model, which is the network layer. And firewalls fire traffic that is not blocked by the firewall rules. So if it says, for example, that you're not supposed to be submitting TCP traffic and the packet that it's looking at is a TCP packet, it's not going to forward that on, okay, because the firewall's going to block it. So the firewall prepends a new MAC header on the packet before forwarding it. If the system has network address translation capacities, or NAT, the NAT system alters the IP address to hide the client's private IP address, okay? If the network address translation alters the source and destination IP address of the packet and tracks the connection relationships in the table. So this keeps, for example, if you have an internal network that has IP addresses that you don't want to be available to the outside world, you expect this to be done by the NAT. So then we also have a port address translation, which is PAT, and that alters the port information and uses this information for demultiplexing multiple internal connections so that IP addresses on one side of the PAT will not match the IP addresses on the other side. So again, this is meant to keep the privacy of, like, for example, your internal networks. So any questions about any of that?
Right, and this is where security and IT gets problems with each other, right? Before it was cybersecurity and it was called InfoSec, right? A network administrator, the same guy who set up the routers and switches, will set up the firewall. So he might not have a strong command of security in the overall corporate sense, but he understands his network and he understands what ports are going. He understands the traffic and the flow. So he sets up firewall rules. If it blocks, he will adjust and stuff like that. Now that this is in the hands of someone else, this is somebody's role now to configure the firewalls. Now there's a security administrator that might not even be part of the networking team. Firewall rules are human made. I mean, now today they're using AI to help and massaging these rules, but this is made by humans, right? Humans make mistakes, and unfortunately for IT is very siloed. So how would a cybersecurity professional like you know how SQL server data goes back and forth on the network? How this application we use for employee payroll, how does that go back and forth? You might not have been in those meetings, you might not know, but you set up a firewall rule and then your rule doesn't work. The network administrator might go in and just disable that rule, because their job is to make sure the packet from the source gets to its destination. They don't care about all this security crap. That has nothing to do with them, right? That's your problem. That's how they feel. This is their attitude, right? So when you're looking at these firewall rules, you have to know what is going on behind the scenes, right? How does the source get to the destination? What ports does it use? Those things you have to know. Is it being manipulated before it gets to the destination by other devices like NAT, right? Like the router, stuff. So these things you have to know before you can actually set up a firewall rule, right? Because the firewall rule is static. It doesn't change on the fly. Right? If I say block HTTP traffic, it's going to block HTTP traffic. It's not going to say, oh, but not this one. Oh, but maybe, I don't know if they really meant to block this one, right? So that's something we have to keep in mind.
All right, thank you, Professor. All right, so questions for chapter 1. What is the hardware address of the client that is browsing to maps.google.com? So these are the questions you're going to have to take a look at the file to be able to find the answer. What is the IP address of the DNS server, which is also the router? What is the hardware address of the DNS server and the router? And what IP addresses are associated with maps.google. So you'll see at the end of chapter 1, it actually shows you, what the answers are, but you should actually just go and just take a look and see if you can find the information in the PCAP file. Okay. And it's in the file that we were taking a look at. All right, so that's it for chapter 1. We will have to speed up a little bit because we still have 2 more chapters to go. So these are the chapter 2 exam objectives. So Wireshark creation, making sure that you have the latest version, the different elements within there, their main menu, their tools, and the functions in the toolbars. So most of the time you should just know within Wireshark that it is quicker to do things through the right click functionality. So right click and follow, for example, right click and whatever, as opposed to going through the menu. There are also shortcuts, but right click is the most efficient way. So for chapter 2, we're using the ftp-dir.enc file and types of packet captures. So there are 3 types. There's actually some more depending on what type of device you're using, but these are the 3 that the exam talks about. So there's the lib PCAP, which captures traffic on Nix hosts. There's the Win PCAP, which captures traffic on Windows ports of the lib PCAP link layer interface. And then there's the Air PCAP, which is the link layer interface and network adapter to capture wireless traffic on Windows as well. So you'll see that these 2 are specifically associated with Windows, but the top one is the link layer as opposed to this one. All right, so expert info button and file information. So you will see if we take a look in Wireshark at the bottom left here in the very corner, there is 2 information. There's the expert information. So the expert information gives you information overview about the file. So it tells you if there is a warning, a note, or if there's a chat that's associated with it. So you can find out if there are, for example, a whole lot of chats, connection established, request, send to port 80. It'll give you high level information about that in this window. So this will be available for all of your PCAP files. Additionally, there's another thing here, which is the Wireshark capture file properties. So what this does is this gives you a high level overview of the PCAP file that you're taking a look at. So for example, it tells you the name, it tells you the length of it. If there is a hash associated with it, that information is included here. It tells you what format it is. So this is a Wireshark PCAP file. It tells you how it was encapsulated, okay? It tells you the time and date of the first packet, the last packet, and then how much time is elapsed. So in this case, you'll see that this looks like it's, what is this? Maybe an hour and 19 minutes, maybe? Or maybe that's a minute and 19 seconds. I'm not sure, but this tells you how much time is elapsed. It tells you if the hardware or operating system or application information is known. It also tells you, for example, how many packets are in there, the time span of the packets, the average packet per second, average packet size, bytes, and information. So any information that's available in the properties of the file, you can also put comments in here. So in this case, they tell you what it is that you're looking for. So this refers to Chapter 7 Wireshark network analysis. Okay, so it gives you the file capture properties in that. So those 2 are located at the bottom. Okay, a minute and 19 seconds. So as you can see, we got 23,000 packets in a minute and 19 seconds. All right, so those are those 2 there, the expert information and the property information. So next up we have the expert info button. You saw that there were little bubbles of a different color. Ours is kind of like yellow. So if there are errors that are being in the packet capture, then that will show up as red. Yellow is warnings, cyan is notes, blue is chats, green is for packet comments, but no errors, warnings, or notes, and gray is no export information involved. So if you see a file, for example, and it has a lot of red, that could help you to identify, for example, errors within the network. What's going on? All right, so we took a look at the file information. So next up, there's packet information, and there's also profile information. So I will show you those. So packet information is available here, and profile information is available here. So in this case, there are 23,000 packets, but the ones that are displayed are 23,000. So this might be different. For example, if you were to right click and say, follow the TCP stream, or follow the UDP stream in this case. So in this case, it only is displaying 2. So you'll see down here at the bottom, there's still 23,000 packets in this file, but right now only 2 of them are displayed. And it's to showing you the information that's related to the DNS. And then you also have a wireless profile, a profile which could be default, Bluetooth, classic, or no reassembly. There are also some other options as well besides these that are just not applicable for this particular packet capture file. All right, so file and edit menus. So you'll see that there's a lot of information in the file and edit menus. You can access most of the functionality within the file and edit menus. So if you want to, for example, add a comment, that's something that you would do within the edit menus. So why would you want to add a comment, right? So let's say you're trying to figure out what happened in a file, and you're saying, hey, this is where they downloaded the the password file, right? You could put a comment there so that information is there for the next person to take a look at the file, right? So this could be, for example, if you're having somebody who's doing triage to try to figure out, what's going on in the packets, they can, add comments and, figure out and color code it, for example, to let you know what's going on. And then you can send it to somebody else who might be investigating to see if there was an actual, crime that took place. For example, if you were doing this for forensic means. So the ones that I typically use in the file menu is the export objects. This is especially helpful if you're doing capture the flags that are associated with Wireshark. So within edit, you can mark packets. So you can mark a single packet, or you can mark a group of packets. You can ignore packets, like if you're saying, hey, this packet has nothing to do with what it is I'm looking for. Or you could do a time shift. So the packets are all in, I think is it
UTC.
UTC, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all in UTC. So let's say instead that you want to know whether or not something took place in Eastern Standard Time, you could shift the packet times for all of the packets so that you're looking at them in Eastern Standard Time, if that's what you want, or wherever your servers are. But the reason why they put them in the UTC is because they want to make sure that it's common across multiple places. So like if you have a company that's on the West Coast and a company in East Coast, they're all recording it in the same time, and you just have to do whatever the translation is for wherever you're at. And then you can edit or add packet comments. So then there is the view menu, which allows you to do things, for example, like is view timestamps in relative, absolute with date or delta. View name resolution at the MAC layer, the network layer, or the transport layer. So by default, Wireshark resolves the first 3 bytes of the MAC address and the port number in use. And then you can also view coloring rules. So if you want to, color code the packet as you go through it in a certain way, or if you are setting up your own Wireshark so that hey, I want to see anything that's FTP in a certain color, and I want to see anything that's DNS in a certain color, then you can set up your own coloring rules. So that'll help you once you open up a file to be able to zone in on whatever it is that you're looking for. You may have seen by default that Wireshark has some coloring rules. So for example, if you see something that is in black with red text, it shows that it is a bad TCP file packet. So if you see a lot of these, this could be an issue with that particular device. So this is how you're going to track down the information. You'll see, for example, ICMCP is typically in the light purple, and HTTP is typically in green. TCP and UDP are in the purple and blue at the bottom, but this is the default color coding that comes with Wireshark. So if you don't do anything else and you look in here, you'll see DNS is blue, TCP and HTTP are green. So it does some default coloring. The other thing that I think is kind of useful is if you look on the right-hand side over here, you can get an idea of where there might be issues because you'll see different colors that are showing up. So in this case, there is a TCP file here that is showing up in red with yellow lettering. So we can see from here that that is a TCP reset. So you can be able to see what types of files based on the colors, but you can also set up your own coloring rules. So Go menu. All right. So if you're going to a specific packet, so for example, I tell you, hey, the packet that you're looking for is packet 643. You can scroll down until you get to 643, or you could use the Go menu. So the Go menu will allow you to go to a specific packet, the next packet, or packets that are in the conversation. So again, if you follow, right click and say follow, you could do the same type of thing as far as looking at the packets that are in the conversation, but you can also do that from the Go menu. There's also, as you see on the right-hand side, keyboard shortcuts to be able to do the same things. So Analyze menu, which is one of the ones that I pointed out to you guys at first. This is where you have the follow TCP stream or UDP stream or SSL stream. It also shows display filters, it applies a filter, and then to be able to decode information if you need to. You can also access the expert information from the Analyze menu, or as I showed you, you can just click on the bottom left-hand corner to get to the expert information there. So we took a look at the expert information. You can also get statistics information from the menu. So that'll give you information like a summary. It'll give you the capture file properties, which we again saw that we could access at the bottom. Endpoints and conversation. So endpoint tells you any computers that are, or any hosts that are involved in the conversation. And conversation tells you specifically which two computers we're talking at any point in time. And then it tells you things like the protocol, things like percentage of traffics, packet links, IP addresses and destination, and then HTTP statistics. So within the tools, you'll see that there is a firewall ACL rule list. So you can add things into here or see what the rules are. And then you can find a packet. So one of the hardest things I'd say within Wireshark is trying to find the information that you're looking for. So they talk about it in the book as being like a needle in the haystack. So for example, if you're looking for a specific information, like for example, you think that they access a specific website, or if you think that they typed in a certain password or any of those things, you want to be able to search and find information as much as possible. So the quickest way to be able to find information is to say Control F, and then you can search based on the filter value, the hex value, or for a specific ASCII string. You can also search in the packet lists, in the details, or in the bytes of the packets. So there's a lot of different ways for you to be able to find information. Thank you. All right, so that's for finding. All right, so filter. So filter is one of the most powerful tools that you're going to be able to use in Wireshark, because this is going to allow you to track things down so that you're not looking at 23,000 packets and trying to find things in 23,000 packets. So let's say if we only care about things that are TCP, right? So you can do a search for TCP, and it'll let you know, like, for example, if you just want TCP streams, for example, you can say that, and it'll just pull up the things that are related to TCP, okay, the TCP protocol. So we see both TCP and HTTP are in here, but you'll see that we're not going to be displaying all of the information unless all the information is sent with TCP. You can also specifically say TCP if you want to look for a specific port. If you want to say, what is it, destination port. So like if you want to specifically look at anything that has a destination port equals to, for example, port, I don't know, 80, you could filter and get all of that traffic. Okay, so you need to be aware of the filter options because those are going to definitely help you to find things. Okay, so we have the questions for chapter 2 that you should be able to open, that you should be able to answer. So the questions that this is asking for specifically are related to the FTP-dir.enc file. It asks you for the highest level of expert information, what profile has been applied. So we should all be able to find this information now based on what you've seen in this section. All right, so chapter 3 exam, and it looks like we've got like maybe 15 minutes left. So we will zip through this. So know where to tap into the network, run Wireshark locally, analyze wireless networks, capture at 2 locations, because it could be that you want to see, what's going on between one location and another. Interface details, capture traffic remotely are some of the things that are covered in chapter 3. So there are no specific files that are used in this exercise. So if you're looking in your textbooks in chapter 3, it shows you a diagram. So the diagram is showed here on the page. And it says that consider that you have a client A, which is complaining. Okay, so we want to place our network analyzer as close to client A as possible to identify traffic issues from A's perspective. If everyone on router A is complaining, you can place it closer to that device. Okay, so it just really depends on what's going on. So if client A, in this case, the example that they provide you is that this person is having a hard time, it's really slow for them to be able to upload or download. Before they were saying that they were able to do it in 2 or 3 minutes, but now it's taking them 15 minutes, right? So depending on where you tap into the network, will determine, what type of traffic that you get, so you can try to figure out what's going on. So the other thing to consider is that Wireshark takes admin privileges, and not all computers, not all machines that you are taking a look at may be able to have those privileges to be able to take a look at that. So you have to consider that when you're deciding where you want to tap into the network. So one option is to run it from the system that you want to capture traffic to or from. However, sometimes it's not possible due to the security measures that are needed to get it installed on the user's machines. You could also do a portable Wireshark that can be installed onto a portable apps-enabled device. So it really just depends on the rights of the machines that you're trying to take a look at. You can capture traffic on switched networks. So using a switch to help control and isolate network traffic. When you connect Wireshark to a switch port, you only see up to 4 types of traffic: broadcast traffic, multicast traffic, traffic to and from your own hardware address, and traffic to an unknown hardware address. So using analyzer agents for remote capture, analyzer agents are used by distributed analyzers, and analyze agents allow you to manage switch traffic from a central location. Analyzing routed networks. Routers isolate traffic based on the network address, such as the IP address. If you place Wireshark on one side of your router, you will only see the traffic that is destined to go from that network. Okay, so we talked about how there could be different traffic on either side of a network device. So just be aware of that and how they view the IP addresses, because if you're on one side of a device, it may be the traffic is has private IP addresses, and on the other side, they may be differently. So depending on where you put your device will help to figure out whether or not you're able to resolve whatever your problem is. Any questions or comments about that? All right, so analyzing the wireless network. You want to start from the bottom and move through the protocol stack when analyzing WLAN environments. Wireshark cannot identify unmodulated RF energy or interference. You want to use a spectrum analyzer to identify those types of problems. So Wireshark's location on a wireless network is similar to the location in a wired network, and you want to move it as close as possible to the complaining user. So even if you can't put it on the specific complaining user's device, you want to put it as close as possible. And once you have determined the interference is not an issue, move up to the packet level to examine WLAN traffic. Okay, so just try to isolate what the issue is. So dual captures. So it may be necessary to capture traffic on 2 or more systems to try to narrow down what's going on. So this is called dual capture. So I mentioned this not just to let you know that it's possible, because it may be something that if you plan on taking the exam that you're going to see. Traffic can be captured using T-Shark or Wireshark. Both analyzer systems should be time synced so that they are both operating on the same time, because you don't want one speaking in EST and one speaking in, you know, like the, what is it, like maybe IST? I don't know. And merge cap can be used to combine the trace files. So once you have them synced as far as time is concerned, then you can use a merge program like merge cap to be able to combine the trace files to be able to take a look. All right. So there may be times where you need to capture traffic remotely, but analyze it locally. So some switches offer remote spanning capability. You can also use the remote capture abilities in tools like WinPCAP. So again, this may be something that you need to do as a network person, but this also may be something that someone wants to do if they're looking at your network maliciously. So just keep aware that you can do this. They don't have to actually be right in your, on top of you in order to get your traffic. So questions, these are the questions for the end of 3. If you connect Wireshark host directly into a switch, what traffic can you expect to see? So we talked about the 4 types that you should be able to see. And then you should also be able to discuss the difference between monitor mode and promiscuous mode. So I think Professor mentioned that earlier in terms of the types of information that are allowed in both. And I think, yeah, I think that's it. So questions. All right, so we did chapters 1 through 3 this week. So you should actually just make sure that you can answer the questions from each one of the 3 chapters that we reviewed. I would also take the time to actually go through the packet capture files and see if you can find the information that they are saying that you should be able to find. Next week, we're going to be doing chapters 4 through 6. So that'll be June 12th. One note is that we will not have any of this July 4th weekend, but try to keep up as much as possible, especially if you want to try to take the exam, because we have a lot to get through before the end. You are very welcome. So any other questions?
Yeah, question. Do we
Sure.
use those files, the files that we use from the Black Girls website for the Wireshark to test it?
Yes,
To see
the
how they
files
work?
are going to be on, and I will actually put the folder that has all of the files onto the website. Right now you have the ones from chapter 1, but I will give you the link. I was waiting for them to finish uploading and they finished now. So I'll give you the link on that same page to all of the files for the, the next 12 weeks. And then the other question was, will it be saved on YouTube? So yes, this is on YouTube, so you can be able to follow up there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, well, everyone have a good rest of your day, and I will catch you on the Slack. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.